Hey there, my name is Blain Watters, as you saw on that slide. I'm a screenwriter in Toronto, Canada, and I also teach screenwriting at a couple universities here in town. Breaking in is the theme of these talks, but there's something a bit interesting about those words to me. Breaking in assumes that once you've broken, you'll be in. Uh, I remember sitting across from, I'm going to name drop Adam Agoyan. It was a big deal in Canada. If you have an Oscar, you're practically royalty here. And I asked him this, how does it feel to have made it? You're the most in I've ever seen in the Canadian film industry. And he said, what the heck are you talking about? No one will fund my next movie. It all falls apart. Each movie I try to get made, I feel like I'm starting from scratch. And I felt really bad having asked him that question. I mean, this is what it means to be from a small country when compared to America and work in the same language they do. We never really feel in a whole country with imposter syndrome. But I'm not sure it's about our country, honestly. Having talked to a few filmmakers from America and around the world, there are parts of making films that gets easier, and for the lucky few, tremendously easier. But no one I've ever talked to feels like they're a part of the in club. They assume that everyone else is in, but they are not. So I'm going to contend that there is no in to break into. But if we're talking about making money with your craft, doing something incredibly hard that needs a lot of buy-in from a lot of different people, something that takes a lot of chutzpah and confidence to do, well, then I have a few pieces of advice, a few tools that I've used to land things that other people have used to create things, and that you too can hopefully use to rise above the randomness a little bit. But don't be fooled. There's still a tremendous amount of luck involved, unless you have rich and influential parents. So my number one piece of advice is just to do stuff. It's really that simple. Whatever you want to do it. Don't wait for a yes. Don't wait for people to catch up. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Don't wait. Just start doing it. When I started out, I was the worst kind of writer. I was a writer in name only. I didn't write often, only when something struck me as a good idea. And because I didn't write often, I would soon tire of the idea. Steam would run out, my gears would stop turning, and the idea would be relegated to a saved file in a folder on the dusty part of the circuit board on my computer. I would do things slapdash, a fit of writing here, a burst of inspiration there, but every time someone told me no, or I don't know what this is, I don't like it, I would put it down. I would be devastated. I stopped writing for long periods of time. The Duplass brothers, they're kind of the big name in mumblecore movies in North America. In their book, they write a line that really resonated with me. The cavalry ain't coming. No one's going to help you. No one's going to save you. And this is what I realized halfway through my 20s. No one was going to come by with big bags of money and make my things. No one wanted to help me. And you know why? I wasn't helping myself. Chris Rock tells a story about breaking down in his car and no one stopping to help him until he got out and started pushing his car himself. I was looking for others to show me how when I needed to do the exact opposite. I needed to show them how to work with me, that I was working. So I didn't have great habits. I couldn't sit and write for long periods of time, so I just wrote sketches. I started where I could. I got a couple of friends together and we filmed them. It became internet sketch comedy at a time when people were really interested in that. We got attention. A production company shopped our TV show around. I found a way into writing for TV. I was shown it was possible. Now I write for at least an hour a day. I try to keep my habits strong. Aristotle said that we are what we repeatedly do. It means that no one can tell you whether or not you're a writer. You are one if you do it. So don't just stand there, do something. Okay, piece of advice number 2, do other stuff. I hated sports. I never played them all throughout school. Why would I? I wanted to make films. I wanted to write. I should be doing that. I should be obsessive in my pursuit, myopic in how I approached my goals. I should write for 10 hours a day and get my 10,000 hours in and be a genius. One of my friends was big into basketball. He wanted to have a weekly pickup game and needed an extra body. I agreed reluctantly to join. I'm not a sporty man. Look at these glasses. And that first game was indeed proof of that. It was humiliating. But I got a basket at the end of the game, and that kept me coming back. And I played all year, and more people joined, and I stayed. And while grabbing some water, I talked to a guy who was playing with us, and he had made this short film, and he wanted to make a feature, but wanted to bring on a screenwriter to do it. And I told him I was a screenwriter. And it kicked off a job for me that would be the cornerstone of my career. I wrote Sleeping Giant with director Andrew Civadino, and it premiered at Cannes and played in top-tier festivals worldwide. So networking is more than going to events. It's living your life. It's talking to people everywhere. It's connecting people. Meet everyone. You never know who you can help or who can help you. Number 3, be a gorilla. The film industry is notoriously hard to get noticed in, but so are many, many other fields. So I hope this piece of advice resonates with a lot of you. When you are competing against people with more experience, more insight, and more connections than you, you must realize that you are not playing against an equal opponent. You are an underdog. In his book, David and Goliath, Malcolm Gladwell gives us a staggering statistic about underdogs. If an underdog army uses guerrilla tactics in battle, thinking outside the box, it wins 63% of the time. If it doesn't, it tries to go toe-to-toe with conventional tactics, that percentage shrinks to a paltry 29%. So let's think outside the box to land jobs and to get working. My first ever job was as a researcher on a TV show called Lost Girl here in Canada. I had won an internship based off of my script that I had written. That was totally luck. But I was only supposed to be in the room for 2 weeks, unpaid, as an intern. On my first day, I asked one of the writers at lunch if they needed anything in the room that they didn't have. One of them told me that this being a Monster of the Week show and them writing the last season, they had to keep watching old episodes of the show, fast forwarding through DVDs to see whether that monster had died or the magic object that they wanted to use in the last season had been destroyed. So they could use these things while writing this last season, kind of bring the whole show to a cohesive whole. And it took them forever to do. So I saw a need. I went home and I watched every episode, and I made a spreadsheet document of each monster and what their power was in each object and whether these things still existed in the universe that they were writing in. And I handed it to the showrunner, and it made people's lives easier. They no longer had to go through DVDs and waste time. I was hired on after those 2 weeks because I did something that no one else had done, and I demonstrated my value. This is another example. When I saw that a video game company was hiring, I applied as a writer for an upcoming game, but I didn't have any video game writing experience. How could I prove that I knew how to write for video games when I actually didn't? I reached out to a game designer and asked if they could help me somehow put my resume into a video game. That might show them that I can write for video games. And after our talk, during our talk, they told me that there's this program that you can use to do text-based choose your own adventures called Twine. So I taught myself how to use that program, only what I needed to know, and I made an interactive choose your own adventure CV, resume. And I sent it in, and I got the job. So my advice is to think like an underdog. How do you stand out from the pack? What bit of extra work can you do that will matter most? Okay, 4. This is out of 6, by the way, so we're nearing the end. 4, be on set. My friend was a playwright. He wanted to make his first short. I knew nothing about producing, but I agreed to help him for free. I would produce his movie by helping him hire and work on budgets and such. But I didn't really know anything about it, and I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to be a writer. But my friend needed help. So as we were filming, we were changing locations, and the AD and I split on a cab to get to the next location. And in the cab ride, we started talking. She told me about her upbringing, and I told her about mine. We connected. We became friends. She confessed to me that she was in town for a few days, and that's why she took the job as AD, but really she's a director. And she had this short film that she wanted to take to a feature. And I said, hey, I've done that before. And the short film was about her upbringing. We had similar upbringings, and she was like, you should write this. She then introduced me to a producer who then introduced me to others. And of helping my friend make a short, I managed to get 3 jobs. And I hear stories like this all the time. I tell my students that this is the absolute best way to network. Don't. Just be around people who are doing what you want to do. Be on set. Meet those people. Share your stories. Laugh. Make friends. Networking at events is horrible. Making friends is much nicer. Working with friends, even better. Be nice, be kind, be humble, but be on set. Okay, number 5, be authentic. After writing sketches and learning that there was a path for writing for TV for me, I applied to the Canadian Film Centre. Everyone that got in got an agent and started working, which sounded pretty great. So it seemed like if I could just get accepted into that, I'd have it made. So I applied for their TV writing program. I gave them 2 scripts, one about 2 magicians and another spec for a TV show called Justified. They were good enough to pull me out of the pack of 300 applicants and land me in the top 30 who got an interview, but there were only 6 spots. In the interview, they asked me a question: who are you? You wrote a comedy and a drama. You wrote about magicians and crime. Like, you're all over the place. I don't know who you are, and I didn't know how to answer, and I didn't get in. I thought really hard about those questions and realized that my writing wasn't personal. I wasn't putting myself into it. I grew up with over 30 foster siblings, kids that had been through the worst life had to offer, but still found hope and resiliency and kindness and were able to live good lives and be who they wanted to be. They really impacted me. They changed the core of me. And I knew things, and now know things about the world that others didn't. I was put in crazy situations as a kid. I had a very unbelievable upbringing. So I started to write about that, about me, the good, the bad, and the ugly parts too. I applied the next year with a drama about a foster family like my family, and a spec about another found family in The Walking Dead. I was in both scripts. On every page, I put my experience and my knowledge and myself into those scripts, and I got in. Every time I've tried to write a cop show, I have failed. It's just not me. But writing about difficult upbringings, different families, poverty, class, that always leads me to some form of success, because that's my authentic self. That's my experience. So be yourself. Give yourself to others. Don't hold back. We want authentic stories from authentic people because we don't get that nearly enough. Look around at the media you intake. Is it authentic? Probably not. The stuff that has stuck with you, though, that's personal. That's authentic. And finally, 6, if I can leave you with anything, this would be it. Follow your happiness. It can be so hard to land that first job, and the second and the third. It can feel like you're starting over and over again, like Adam and Goyen certainly felt. And sometimes, since it's so difficult, we do become myopic, we do become obsessive, and we put a lot of our self-worth and identity into what is, at the end of the day, a job. I sometimes felt like I was in a pretty bad relationship with filmmaking. I would get one step ahead and then get thrown backwards. I would claw my way back up and then get stomped down. It can feel really horrible. In order to get back up time and again, my mind did something to cope. I fooled myself into thinking that I was writer. Not that my job was as a writer. My job became my identity. And then I got a gig that was amazing. My agent was flabbergasted. He was very excited to have me as a client. I was rising fast. This gig was proof of that. And the gig was amazing until it wasn't. It became a hell gig. And everyone working in the industry has their story of a hell gig. Everyone on this panel has probably worked a hell gig. I was verbally abused. I was yelled at. I was told I was worthless. It was pretty bad. And when I told my agent what was happening, he turned away from me. He dropped me as a client. He told me I'd never work again. Now, I stayed in that horrible job too long because I can take it. I am writer. That's what I told myself. And I stayed in that horrible agent for too long because I told myself I can take it. I am writer. But what I also was miserable. I was a ball of depression and anxiety. And what I had loved, writing, I suddenly hated. My career was over. And because I was writer and writing was my career, I was over too. Who was I if I wasn't a writer? I didn't follow my happiness. If I had, I wouldn't have gone so long in that horrible job. I wouldn't have gone so far into the depths of despair. Luckily, I was able to diversify who I am. I'm now a teacher and a husband and a father. And yes, I'm still a writer too. I have 2 features in development. I made a web series that did very well around the world. But it's just a job I love, but a job that I can step away from to follow my happiness. And now I get to be so much more than just writer. I get to be what I've always wanted to be, which is a teacher and a husband and a father. So follow your happiness. It can seem like quitting is shameful, but when you're unhappy, when you're unhealthy, It's no longer quitting. It's following your happiness somewhere else. So be around people that are making what you want to make. Be around people that are not doing what you want to do, because you'll probably find some connections there too. Be humble, be yourself, and don't put all your self-worth into what you do. You're more than that. Okay, I hope this helps. Thank you for coming to my talk, and and thank you very much. Okay, bye.